So we've had an interesting week in the world mobile land, and I'm guessing quite a few people will be watching this with minimal information. So early staking was meant to happen on last Monday, and there was a distributed denial of service attack in DDoS against the world mobile servers. So the process was paused and rescheduled, which seems straightforward enough. But it certainly got lots of conversation happening on the channels to the point where, you open the Telegram, you find there's been 1,000 messages. So do you have any insight into, what happened in terms of community reaction, expectations, and, how did people feel and why did they feel that way? Rick was at the forefront of this.
Yeah, well, for me, so just going to my experience last October 11, it was, you can't help but feel a bit emotional about it because you think it's going to be done in a minute, less than a minute, but it got dragged on. And especially if you are like me, who was there in TGE week 0 or the day before, which was July 3 or July 4, where you had to queue for the reservation. That was super smooth. And so it was a very surprising. There's that element of surprise and a little bit of shock of what's going on. So there's that sense of there's something wrong. And again, it got dragged on. And even though the team actually reacted to that quite quickly, they said, let's stop this. We'll do this another time and we'll do it properly, which I think was great. It was very fast. But then there's that feeling that there's something wrong. And so I think maybe that's what happened to a lot of people. They tend to, I think humans in general, we tend to dwell on when there's something wrong. Which makes sense because you want to solve it, right? When you sense that there's something wrong, you want to solve it and you try to think about it more. And I think that's what triggered all of these discussions around how to do it better. It's because the community is trying to genuinely come up with a solution on how to do it. For anyone who's been looking at the chats, sometimes those discussions get a bit more excited, a bit more animated. But I think it's just people being very passionate about World Mobile. I think that's what it is at its very core. Sometimes it gets a little uncomfortable. Sometimes it gets heated. But I think it's coming from a place of real concern and real, I guess, passion about World Mobile.
Yeah, I think you're really, that's really true. That people care. A lot of people care, and that just makes them, super passionate. And then they're trying to solve problems as far as they can see it. What solution could we come up with? Should we change the whole thing? Should it be a lottery system? Maybe we don't need rewards at all. Maybe we do need rewards. It just, trying to question everything, just like a panic reaction to try and deal with a negative situation. And on top of that, some people had never read the documentation. The amount of people that I've had to deal with over the, since like May or whenever I've been in the chats, that, asking questions, and they've already bought WMT in some situations, but then they're asking questions. It's like, surely you should know, when so-and-so is going to happen. If you're putting money in here, there's only so many hours in the day and people aren't able to read everything. But, for me, if I'm going to put money into something, I want to know where my money's going and how the system is going to work. So yeah, some people I think just hadn't really understood the way the system was going to work. And when they found out that the way it was going to go, they were like, oh, that's not fair. Why don't we all get the same? It's like, well, actually, it's not. It's an incentive reward. It's not designed to be equal. In fact, if it was equal, there would be no point having it. They could have just had a lower token price and achieved the same result. The first come, first served nature of it does something. It's, you know.
Yeah. I mean, just to help the audience on that, basically, if I recall correctly, depending on where you get in on early staking with Earth nodes, I believe, is it, or just general early staking, you can have a 94% return or a minimum of like 9-point-something%.
It's
right?
18 minimum on Earth nodes and 94.
94 max, 18 minimum. So we're not exactly looking at a terrible result if you're not one of the first people to get through there. I mean, that's okay. Yeah, I did notice people were heated. And for the audience's information, I'm kind of chill about all this. It started at 8 p.m. Japan time. I woke up from a nap at 9:20 p.m. Japan time and saw that the process had been canceled. So I was just like, oh, so why is everyone blowing up? What? Yeah, it's an interesting thing though. And, you know, I mean, as you said, the incentive system is there to engage people. The whole point is to have excitement, to engage at certain speeds, motivation to be first. But even if you don't make it into that particular top level with something like an Earth node, you're still getting a massive return by any rational measure. Though I suppose some people come into crypto, this is just an observation and I'll need your feedback. I suppose some people come into crypto not only not reading the documents, but also having no real idea of where investment is normally, right? They might think that it's normal to get 100 times return in a month, and that's just what investing is. And I get the impression some people don't have expectations based on experience, but on a few stories they've read, and this leads to them being particularly excitable.
I think what's happening is there's been such a lack of yield for so long, and now all of a sudden there's crypto. Yeah. So this applies both to new and to old investors. And now there's crypto and there's massive returns in so many areas. And like what Rick said, there's only so many hours in a day. And a lot of people, they try to capture all of these massive returns as much as possible. And they look at many projects. A lot of people look at several projects. And there's lack of focus. And when there's lack of focus, I mean, how can you really delve into documents? I think even people who read the documents don't have enough time to read it thoroughly and understand it completely. For example, the reward system. Even after October 11, I still see questions in the chat asking, well, what is this all about anyway? What's the period? Are the tokens locked? You know, those are if you're someone who's read the document over and over, those are super basic questions. And if you're someone coming from that position of having, you know, played scenarios in your head and really analyzed the document, and you see questions like that, you think, why would someone who puts their money into something not read this? But if you look at that other person, maybe this person is looking at so many other projects as well, and they're looking at it with a completely different lens. Maybe they're looking at it with a particular structure in mind, which worked for them before. And so now when they look at this, they think this one is not so good. So yeah, I think there's just not enough time, even for people who want to understand. There's not enough time. And then of course, there are some people who just don't care, I guess, or they rely more on their friends telling them how to do things, or maybe they just are a different type of learner. They prefer videos more, maybe they prefer hearing a voice more than reading a document. There will always be those types. But I think in general, people do want to understand where they put their money. They just don't prioritize the same way, or they don't have that kind of focus to really understand. That's what I think.
That's a really good point. And I think it was on the Lampo chat at one point I mentioned that when it comes to details on World Mobile, I just ask Rick. I outsource. So we had some kind of excitement there. We had some confusion. The date is reset for Sunday, the 20-something.
24th, I believe.
24th, which I think is a pretty good day. Sunday will mean that everyone's available. They can hit the button as hard as they want, or they can take a nap, depending on their personality type. And I like the way that the new date on the 24th gave us, gave us another week and a half space for people to prepare. And if they've gone off for a few days and they're coming back late, they're not going to miss anything. So I was very happy with that. There was a very nice post from Mickey across the channels, which summarized the whole denial of service and the reset and the targeting. And as he said, nothing has changed except the specific date for early staking, which I think was a very good and very well communicated decision. There was some murmur on the channels where people were like, why don't we just redo all of the staking systems? And it's like, you can't do that. People bought in on certain expectations. And you might push your timeline by a week or two, but you're not changing the fundamentals. And you can't. There's thousands of people here. Yeah. Okay, so I did want to touch on one thing around the community discussions. I noticed that we had some particularly heated discussions with just a handful of individuals who appeared to be somewhat negative towards WMT or to have persistent problems accepting that WMT was going to continue to execute against the set expectations. And my own note there was that, if people buy into something, whether or not you read the paper, that's what it is. And it's up to you to read the paper. You don't get to rewrite something because you have a different opinion. Or to be more accurate, if you want to rewrite something, go create your own telco, token sale, and partnerships.
Yeah.
Those are.
I think that's a really important point, Shane, is people, are under the impression, especially I think some of the Cardano community particularly, the whole mission and ethos of Cardano, it's got that kind of changing the world sort of really positive mission to it, which is, who wouldn't sign up to that? But it does attract a certain kind of people that are hell-bent on perhaps the destruction of the all existing political, financial, and hierarchies and everything. The entire world needs to be destroyed and brought back, and we need some kind of, some other kind of great resets, that whatever the one that they would propose, and yeah, those people have got a particular desire for fairness, as we've been noticing, and which is obviously laudable, but you can't. Some things, if you try and make them fair, the only way you can do it is by using unfair methods. Yes. Which we've seen that play out in the world on a number of occasions, and I don't think they need going into in great detail on this channel, but it's worth mentioning that mindset. World Mobile is not a charity, and it's not completely a decentralized organization. There's World Mobile, which is a telco company, and then there's the sharing economy, which will grow around that. Yes. So it's worth bearing that in mind. There's a World Mobile business, and then there's going to be the sharing economy.
Absolutely. And I think that's something I've seen so many times in the last decades in open source. And, people in two ways. One, people want to try to change everything at once, and you can only evolve systems one part at a time. And if you think you've got a clean sheet design which solves everything, it's a simple model that won't work. And that's what really annoyed me about Bitcoin when it started. I mean, Bitcoin's thing was, let's change finance. And gradually, everything's been getting regulated and everything coming back in line, because we've spent thousands of years working this out. It's not like the fiscal system and economies were made up. The Romans were selling shares in ships so that people would spread the load on risk on mercantile activities. We have a long history of trying to figure out, how do we make money? How do we balance it? And the idea that you can reinvent everything at once is, quite frankly, naive. laudable but naive. And I can understand the passion, and I think the passion should be applied, but issue by issue. Don't expect that one thing is a panacea for changing the universe. It can't be. Open source isn't it. Blockchains aren't it. And one sharing economy is not it. So, yeah. But I mean, at the same time, it's great when people have vision and want to express ideas, as long as they understand that what they're expressing is something that will need to be socialized across thousands or millions of people. And just, what you proclaim is not going to be what humanity runs with.
Absolutely. We discuss things when we iron out the kinks between each other's points of view and needs. That's how we learn, isn't it?
There's one phrase I really liked. So in American negotiation, people are always looking for the win-win. And in British negotiation, people are looking for everyone to be equally miserable. I think that's a good summary of human relationships.
Maybe something to do with our weather.
That's right. Now, Bibi, you hit on something really interesting, I think, about people coming into this field pretty new to investing as a whole and the low returns people get elsewhere. I mean, this week I started investing in Japan Post Bank because it's holding the majority of the Japan government's debt. And interestingly, it's got an 8% dividend return, which for crypto people listening, they're like, ugh. But 8% dividend return is insanely high. And that's because Postbank doesn't do anything apart from have trillions of dollars in savings and use that to buy debt and earn interest on it. And when you're an investor for a while and you want to do something like compound interest, you buy some dividend shares like that. You just let it roll and buy more shares. And these are all different trading strategies. And I think perhaps in crypto, we're missing clarity on trading strategies. I see people yelling a lot on Reddit or in telecom channels, basically saying, here's how you get rich in crypto. And they have one idea, right? And we don't seem to have a list of trading strategies to help give people lighthouses that aren't hyper enthusiastic or hyper negative. I don't know if you concur with that. That's my own read on it.
I think trading strategies will come once an industry becomes very mature. And usually when trading strategies are already around, that's when the yield already starts going away.
Yeah,
that's just the process of maturity in the market. And that's true every time a new product is introduced, and it's true for crypto now. That's the difficult truth that we are all dealing with as investors, as speculators, as token and crypto holders. If we want to enjoy these massive yields, we will have to figure out a lot of things on our own. And I think the most useful advice that I can give at this point is you have to know thyself. You have to know your limits. You have to know what your goals are. You have to know what your resources are. So that when you try to look at resources or tips or strategies, you can cherry pick what's applicable to you. And at the same time, you know how to act in unexpected situations. Because even at this point, I know there are theories out there about the 4-year cycle, and then there's one that's emerging about the lengthening cycle. We don't really know which one will happen, because these are all early patterns. I know there's this line that's always said in statistics, it takes 3 points to make a pattern. But we've only really, in terms of the 4-year cycle, we've only really had those 3 or 4 points. That's not enough to create a reliable history. But then again, that goes hand in hand with the uncertainty goes hand in hand with the potential return, right? And I think that's what a lot of people are trying to capture as much as possible. So really know thyself. And again, this DYOR, the jaw, right? Do your own research. But on top of that, knowing your own situation is really what's gonna spell um, success or disaster for you, and only you can know that. Um, so yeah, I think that's the best advice that I can give, because there is no, like what you said, there is no formula. Actually, there's no formula for anything, even with traditional finance. It's just that some things are more reliable than others. This is something that me and my colleagues in the trading industry also always say. A market is always different. Even when you're trading, for example, FX in Japan will not be the same as FX in the UK.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because you have different participants, you have different rules, different environment altogether. It's like knowing a person. So right now, we are all trying to get to know a new person.
Yes.
We don't know the temperament of this person. Maybe for someone who's experienced, you can tell a market by, when I do this, this is what's going to happen 90% of the time. But like with a human being, there's always that small chance that that person will behave differently. And that's why nothing is perfect. You can't predict everything. But now in crypto, you're trying to get to know a new person. So you have to be very careful. You have to be also self-aware, because maybe this person does something that you've never seen before and you don't know how to react. So you have to plan as much as possible. So yeah, I think knowing yourself first and how you can react best, or what resources you have to navigate this new space is available, it will be very helpful at this point.
Such a good point. And this touches on something, well, very clearly. In crypto, there's a whole lot of, let me be blunt, bullshit quantitative analysis. And people have huge amounts of candle charts and they're reading speculation like, oh, in a month and a half, the bear market will happen according to this analysis. So you don't have the data for that. When they started quantitative analysis in the 80s, they were going back many decades of data. And even so, quantitative analysis has really screwed up in the last decade due to very strange situations with interest rates. And not exclusively. I mean, quantitative analysis provides great returns to trading firms based on 80 years of corpus data, but sometimes bad bets are made. And you can see where people have done something like under quantitative analysis of, let's say, China growth, and then the Chinese government changes policy and people lose many, many, many billions of dollars. But in crypto, when people are doing the quantitative analysis, and I'm looking at how they, let's say, do quantitative analysis on Cardano, it's like, this thing is 4 years old. There's no data to do that. It's completely dartboard, throw thing.
Yeah.
And if someone's doing their own research, there's two things I suggest. Reddit is not research. And second of all, anything that says it's quantitative analysis on crypto at this early stage is not. It's tarot card reading. So that might be a little harsh. That's my own take on it. And when I look at their numbers and I go through it, and I never like quantitative analysis much, because just like theoretical economics, it tends to put artificial lines and say, that's a barrier, and now we've got a third barrier coming. I was like, well, maybe. But the crypto one is the most imaginative storytelling I've seen in a long time.
Yeah. I was just thinking while you two were talking, it's like, it's even, he was just looking at Cardano, but even Bitcoin as well. Okay, it's new, but Cardano is not finished yet, is it? We've only just had smart contracts come out, and the Plutus application backend will be around hopefully sometime this year, which will enable developers to easily write their dApps, get them up and going in an easier fashion. And even then, there's more to come. There's Hydra, there's the Mithril light wallets, and so on. All this stuff. So, and then even Bitcoin, there's the Lightning Network. That's started happening. That's changing things. So even just to if you're trying to analyze the last however many years of Bitcoin, well, now you've got the Lightning Network to contend with. That will have effects that, weren't there for any of that first period of time. So as the technology emerges, trying to predict the future based on the past seems to become even more tenuous.
And I think we always need to be cautious about what's predictable and what's not. I mean, let's say calling a bear market a month and a half from now, based on 4 years of Cardano and 12 years of Bitcoin is, well, if you can do that, you're going to be a trillionaire. But then again, other trends you can put data analysis on, like Bitcoin has collapsed 5 times in its history and somehow recovered again. Presumably at this stage, because there's enough capital invested, it's hard for it to deflate fully. And you can look at it and say the next time Bitcoin collapses is probably not a go home moment. It'll recover at some point. And that's a kind of quantitative analysis you can say is realistic. But yeah, I think another very important point you had, Phoebe, was do your research and also know yourself, right? I mean, you have to know yourself and don't get taken away with these stuff. Yeah. Especially when things go wrong. You see a lot of people panic selling as soon as things are dipping, and you're like, oh, please don't do that. Please.
You know who I observe to perform above average in these situations? Because crypto is not the first speculative asset out there. So many stocks are speculative assets, right? And the types of people who normally do well in this situation are those who have, I guess, very high ambiguity quotient, and people who are used to many small, making many small decisions on a regular basis. And those who have kind of a very good business acumen, like small business owners, for example, they tend to do well in these situations because they always leave that allowance for uncertainty. And again, they're good at making decisions. I guess they know what they're comfortable with, and they know how fast decisions need to be made. They know what kind of decisions can be left for now and revisited later, that sort of thing. So I guess flexibility in the way you think is very helpful at this point.
That's a good point. We shouldn't be stuck on one particular mindset. We have to be able to, Rick, you spend a lot of time talking with the community. Do you think there's anything in particular we could do to help people, I suppose, feel less lost when they move outside their comfort zone? Are there things that we as a community could do to help them, to make them not panic when the market goes down a little, or not get too euphoric, or simply not end up following their favorite YouTuber who is potentially shilling nonsense? How do we help?
Yeah, well, we haven't, we're not listed on markets yet. So, that's one interesting thing that will come in the future with WMT. I'm not sure how much I'm supposed to say about things as an ambassador, but, just looking at the tokenomics of, the early reward incentive. And then when you look at, you look at the token paper and it shows you the vesting schedules for the various pots of WMT, when they start to be released and so on. And you can, one could, if one was so if one desired to, kind of draw up what you think the price might do over a period of time based on supply and demand. And there is a supply element that we might know what is being released. And the demand is a completely different question, which is very speculative. But we will hit that at some point in the future once listings have happened. Then we'll see how that interacts with staking, what effects that has. If there's a soaring price, will it cause people to want to sell? Or if there's if the price starts to tank, will that cause people to want to sell? All these things. So to give a sense of clarity and reassurance, which was your question, because I was just putting loads of doubts out there. We have to look at the long-term mission of what World Mobile is. The documentation is our friend. We've got things have changed, but even because new deals have been made and so on. But if you look at the deck, there is a roadmap of what will happen over the next. I think it goes up to about 2025 or something.
Yes.
Next year, the main net starts to roll out. By the end of the year, I think maybe something like 500,000 users by the end of the year, starting with 100,000, going to 500,000. And then the next year, 2023, proof of concepts and beginning the network in 3 more countries. So Kenya's one of those, I believe, that they
Actually, we should jump in here and say we were in Zanzibar We were in Tanzania, but Mickey let slip in the announcement that we're entering Kenya. So that's a bit earlier than we expected.
Yes.
Backhaul for Kenya. That's very exciting. Kenya's got a population of 55 million people. 19% are living below the Kenyan poverty line, which is dramatically low income. And most people are, as in many African nations, young. So we've got this huge economy, massive amount of young people, plenty of energy. And once more people are connected there, who knows what people will come up with. It's very exciting. Now, I have some charts based on completely informal, inaccurate, wrong sample size polls across our community telegrams, which I want to show in a second. And I think they might lead into the pricing discussion we just had. And this, by the way, everyone, there is no listing. There's no change in the price. WMT is worth 20 cents US dollar. But people have their opinions about where things are going. And in the channels, small samples ranging normally between 2% and 10% of unofficial channels have responded to polls. Here's an interesting one. At what point would you sell your WMT? This is not a time-limited thing. It's just when do people sell? And $10 is the most popular choice. So we have an interesting group there where people are looking at a certain type of return at $10. They're thinking, I bought it at 20 cents, $10 each is a good place to sell. And 21% want us to count higher. So they're very optimistic, they're very bullish. I think the numbers that I paid attention to there were probably the $10 and $20 marks, where we have people talking about high levels of price point, but not unreasonable growth. And it started to peter off then before we reached the massive numbers. But the reason I wanted to show this poll was because there was also a poll about where World Mobile could be in 2 years. And the majority of people thought around $10 and beyond. Now, again, these sample sizes are ridiculously low. Okay, so no one should take this as a proper statistical sample, but it does show an apparent correlation with people looking for a certain price point that they think will probably land in 2 years. So we seem to have a bunch of people which are relatively long-term holders hanging around. And this is just a potential indicator and very far from a strong correlation, but we do have other signals of similar things across the community in terms of, well, what people are saying in the unofficial and official channels. It's an interesting thing, I think, that people are pretty optimistic about strong growth, like to 10 and beyond. It's interesting as well that a lot of people are looking at selling at around $5 to $10 to $20. That does seem to indicate that in the early market, there might be somewhat restricted liquidity if people are going to actually pan out with prices like this. A lot of people won't sell early, which of course would lead to prices going up. I just thought it was interesting. It's interesting to see where sentiment is. And my curve on the where would you sell your WMT kind of, I canceled reading after $20 because then it just starts to go crazy. It's like, yeah. Those are the speculative people, and that's fine. Yeah. There you go. And I don't know if you've got any thoughts on that. I just thought it was interesting to see where people were landing when they bothered to hit the polls. Yeah, sorry, Bibi, go ahead.
Yeah.
Well, World Mobile is, I think whenever people are discussing about prices, I think we shouldn't lose sight of the fact that World Mobile is a telecom. It's a utility. And I think we should always remind ourselves to go back to the core of what World Mobile is. This is a need. This is not just a fun project that people would like to have. It's not a nice to have. It's a utility. And it's about, again, connecting the unconnected. That's not just a tagline. That's what they will actually do. And that's what they have actually started doing already. So seeing very optimistic expectations in the price like this is not surprising at all. And also the fact that people are willing to hold long is not surprising at all. Precisely because of what World Mobile is. And obviously with how they've handled everything around the token so far, we don't have a lot of visibility on all the other stuff. But with how they've handled the token sale so far, and of course all the videos that they're showing us on the ground, this is obviously a very capable team who knows what they're doing. So if you're gonna put probabilities into that, then numbers like 10 and beyond is not surprising at all. This is a team that's set for success. They have a very good predisposition. So yeah, not surprising at all, these very optimistic numbers.
I suppose one other thing, a correlation with that is because it's a real company doing real stuff, people should also bear in mind that it takes time to roll out. You can't expect the telco to complete its work in 3 months. So I guess this is why I'm heartened to see we've got some really experienced speculators in our chats. I was talking with one of them yesterday about market trends and potential drops in the amount of free capital due to interest rates. And those speculators, I'm confident, will get a return, a good one. Though I'm also confident they won't get the same return they would as if they stayed here 10 years, but that's not their game. They're going to go in and out of different tokens, and that's fine. And I think those speculators are going to do fine. I think the long-term holders will do fine. I think it's the people in the middle that I tell them, please, 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 please read the papers and check out the company and set your timescales there, so you don't end up getting distracted by something else. This isn't the Shiba Inu token. This is something solid. And yeah, actually, I remember a Shiba Inu thing from China, I believe, that particular one. And I bought 1 million of it to be a millionaire on a weekend. I was like, I'm going to make myself a millionaire. And that was, I don't know, it was like $8. And I did it just to tell my sister I'm a millionaire in a new currency. Just to annoy her. And surprisingly, that piece of garbage automatically sold itself on my Binance account the other day for $80. And just everyone, that is not investment. That was to annoy my sister. I was trolling my sister. And the fact that I got a 10x on that was ridiculous. And I think that's where there's this huge gulf. And you can't look at any of those tokens or coins and then apply that knowledge to World Mobile. You got to look at what telcos do and the type of revenue they generate, and then digital economies. Actually, I've got another thing I want to show us. So World Mobile as a telco is one thing, but it's also just building the foundation of something else, which using digital identity allows people to create new services and use WMT to transact. So a whole bunch of people across the African continent and globally will be able to offer services using WMT. And particularly in areas like, let's say, Zanzibar, Kenya, people will perhaps for the first time have a digital ID that they can do physical transactions against. So I did a little poll for fun saying, as these new entrepreneurs are appearing out of completely new areas in Africa, well, what type of services would you like to see from them? And here we go. It was some surprises here, actually. I went for local cultural products craft, because what I'm doing right now is I'm decorating my house, and I would love to get stuff I could never find. It's like a couple of months ago, I bought some honey from a mountain in China. These people were doing a TikTok account. I was like, I'll buy your honey. And it was something like $30. It was expensive, but it was great to get them. So that's where I was looking, but I'm in the minority here. People want alternative mainstream products, no surprise, but new crypto products or services, 30%. Woo, that's high. I thought this was interesting. This is where the self-proclaimed market demand pull is at in the unofficial channels talking about WMT as a currency right now. We had approximately 10% in the pricing channel respond to this poll. And because 10% is a sample size of 124, it's not enough for predictive analysis, but it's enough to give an indicator of where the sentiment is currently. Yeah, what are you guys gonna look for?
I was just going to comment on the results there, and taking it back to the previous price discussion, over 50, or you need to count higher, people. In the price channel does necessarily, engage people that are interested in speculating on the price, and that perhaps means that the people who are more interested in holding World Mobile tokens for a long time and seeing it grow over a 5-year period and helping to build the network are less concerned with, the short-term price predictions. So maybe that, that's a self-selecting group of people, the price channel in some ways. So that's perhaps why there's quite a large people in there, you need to give me more category. And also perhaps that's why there's quite a large proportion of the new crypto products or services category there. That's just my little bit of thinking. Personally, food doesn't travel so well, and depending on what it is. Maybe if it was coffee, I might buy coffee from Ethiopia or Zanzibar or somewhere. But yeah, art and crafts, those two would be the things I'd be most interested in, I think.
Yeah, I was worried about food. I'm not sure if people know that there's regulations against sending fresh foods, unprocessed food. They're just don't order a dried piece of fish, okay? Don't do that. It's not going to end well.
Yeah.
I thought it was fun, and let's see what comes out. I do imagine that art and craft will be a really low bar, easy sale for people getting online for the first time. It's like people around the world will be like, ooh, this is different. But I'm sure that the sustainable and growth businesses will be something else. If you're going to do craft and you want to have a growing business, you're going to have to scale across multiple products and become a collective, and then so on and so forth. But if you're doing a new social network or cloud service or whatever, you can probably keep it as a smaller company and potentially scale if you get traction. Let's see. Speaking of buying stuff, the Lampos come from someone saying they wanted to buy antique lamps instead of a Lamborghini, right? So this show is heading towards its terminal point, and I wanted to raise the point of antique lamps. I was going to find out what lamp would I buy if I become a crypto multimillionaire thanks to WMT. So naturally, being based in Japan, I started Googling antique Japanese lamps. And I found this horrific and unacceptable example for $600. And I thought to myself, never. So then I kept searching until I found a lamp I want. And yes, if I become a crypto multimillionaire, I want this $30 lamp from IKEA.
Wow.
I had the same experience because I was searching for antique lamps. I really don't like any of these. And so I searched for one that I actually like. It's a modern designer lamp. But then I thought, this is not expensive enough. So that's my problem. So I'm into more of the modern lamps. But I did find one that was an antique. Still not expensive enough, but it was nice. It was a Tiffany lamp. It was auctioned for $7,000.
Ooh.
And I saw from the website where it was at that it was, the estimate was $8,000 to $12,000. It got sold for $7,000. So whoever got that lamp got it for a steal at $7,000.
If the market estimates are that high and the actual purchasing is that low, we might accidentally have discovered a hot area for its large-scale investment right now.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm with you on the Tiffany lamp.
Paradise.
I'm with you on the Tiffany lamp, BB. I just something like this. I'm not that bothered about money, so it doesn't matter if it costs $50 or $5,000.
Let me stop sharing so people can see that bigger. Here we go. Oh, that's actually very showy. Ooh, that's going to cast a nice color on the ceiling.
It depends what kind. You wouldn't put it in every room, would you? But that sort of thing. I'd get something like that.
So we actually do have a variety of lamps in play, and there is no doubt that the lamp is a better investment than the Lamborghini regarding depreciation.
That's right. Actually, that makes sense.
Oh, yeah. So I guess we're nearly done for this day. Let me summarize what we had and see if that's correct. First of all, we had the thing that, there was a pause on an early staking due to a denial of service attack. And that pause was basically to make sure everything was fair. We're rescheduled with about a week and a half of leeway, so people have time to get informed. The second thing was, have your own awareness for how you will respond to trading, as well as doing your own research, know yourself. Be aware about the pitfalls of a very new market, which allows you to have great returns, but it also means that things like predictive analysis are somewhat limited here. And of course, when it comes to looking at the value here, expectations can be high, tied to the growth of a telecommunications business. So you have to keep that in mind when you're judging this. Just to end up, Bibi, you've got a lot of trading experience. And I suppose when people are looking for an idea of when is it mature enough that quantitative analysis in crypto begins to feel solid, or when is it mature enough that crypto information services are more reliable than they currently are? Are there any milestones that you'd show to people? I mean, the only thing I'd say right now is my milestone is that when Bloomberg is providing me with the analysis, I'm more comfortable than when it's crypto today.
I wouldn't, it's hard to identify very specific milestones, but telltale signs, I would say, would be if they start getting taught in schools in a more widespread manner, because right now it's only taught in a very limited number of universities. That would be a sign of maturity. Regulation, of course, is one of the more glaring signs because it's something that's out there. It's something that you will see in the headlines. And I guess a sign that will come probably later than those two will be crypto or crypto-related buzzwords being household terminology. Some people now, when they see a celebrity who's not particularly known for investing or for being a quantitative kind of person or something like that, when they start tweeting, "Oh, I just bought NFTs. Oh, I just bought my first crypto," it's a running joke in the community that, "Oh, okay, this is a sign to sell now." So, but it's funny, but there's truth to that. Yeah. It means that more people have gotten into this. I would say those are the more visible signs of maturity.
That's a good point. Yeah. And Rick, you've spent a lot of time talking to, I'm guessing, thousands of people in the community at this stage. Yes. Yeah. Have you noticed a trend in talking to people that would indicate the general level of maturity in, let's say, our community right now? Are we looking at a fairly new community to investment? Are we looking at a lot of mature investors and so on? For me, it's been hit and miss. I can't tell, but I have only talked to maybe 50 or 60 people, I guess. I'm napping most of the time.
It's hard for me to say. A lot of the conversation I've had have been about, how World Mobile is, how it will work, and, trying to explain to people how it's a telecoms company, like we've been saying today. It's not, it's got a real world use. It's not just a crypto project where you can just write a few lines of code and then boom, off it goes. It's, there's a real loads of nodes and networks and aerials and stuff that needs to be built over the next 5 years for, and initially, as I was saying to somebody today on the chat, Zanzibar it will be the beginnings of the main network, and that was, mostly funded from our TGE, the money we all spent on our WMT. That's enabling, a core of a network to be built. And once that's all up and running, and once it starts next year, once we've got our Earth nodes up functional, those of us that are going to reserve them, then from that point on, once there's something there, the core, then we can start building. The sharing economy can start to kick into gear with nodes being built. But the initial rollout is it's going to take time. People need to be patient. So yeah, a lot of my conversations have been that kind of level of thinking. You know, if people ask me questions, some people have just DM'd me specifically to say, I'm looking for a greater return. Would I be better off with an Earth node or in the or the public pool? And I say, well, the decision's yours to make, obviously. But
Yes.
if you're looking short term, then perhaps something which requires 6 months of holding tokens before you get your reward is not for you, because who knows what can happen in 6 months with token prices. Could go up a long way, they could go up and then down. Who knows? So if you're after a short return, and I can't see how many people would not already come to this conclusion by themselves, but some obviously are weighing up the pros and cons. The public pool, you can get paid within 30 days.
It's very quick.
Thresholds. That's a fairly quick return. You're not left holding anything for too long after that point. So
that's a really good point, Rick. And it's also part of looking after yourself. I mean, if you're a short-term investor, there's nothing wrong with that, but you have to know what's in there for short-term investors and what a short-term investor strategy is. And when you're doing your own research, the ending note I'd have is that if you're talking to people and you're regarding them as sources of potential information as you weigh up decisions, find people who are able to talk about multiple perspectives. To Bibi's point, you have a situation where there are many different views. And if you're going to be a successful investor, you have to be able to be cognizant of those nuances. So when it comes to talking with people and learning from them, ideally, these people will be able to talk to different aspects of investing. I'm not sure if you can find it, but I was chatting with a speculator yesterday, and you'll notice that we were discussing and both agreeing and disagreeing on market evolution points, ranging from interest rates through to potential pressures external to crypto that could move it up and down. And what is noticeable is that we have completely different strategies. I don't buy and sell things. I just buy and hold. And the speculator is coming in and going to aggressively sell. But we could both talk to each other. We could both share information. And ultimately, we have a different strategy, but we know exactly what the other's doing. And I think those are the people. I
saw that discussion. That was a really good discussion. Two people from completely different, strategies, looking at the same data and analyzing it in different ways and drawing their own meanings from it. It was a really good example of a discussion happening in a positive way.
And I mean, I'd say that type of discussion should just be the norm, because it's not really about point scoring. And you can say, I don't like speculation. I don't. And some people don't like long-term investing because they think it makes no money. And that's fine. But know what the other people are doing and how they're doing it. And if you're talking to someone who's dogmatic only, who says the only way to do it is this, that's probably the best sign to back away slowly possible.
Yeah. You need to be able to listen. That's the key, Bibi's having internet problems, so she's probably not going to be able to join us back again, it looks like.
Well, I think we're at the hour, so I guess we'll wrap it up there. Rick, thank you so much as always. Bibi, thank you. I hope our audience found our conversation today interesting. We're not aiming to have a super dense show. We wanted to talk through what was going on in the community, offer some opinions, and basically have a chat, which you may or may not find interesting. And that's why YouTube has fast forward, stop, and ways to find other videos.
Yeah.
All righty. Take care, Rick. Take care, Bibi. Have a lovely day.
Nice to see you both. Take care.
Likewise.
Hi, Shane.
Hi, how are you doing, Bibi? How is life in Germany?
Good. Getting colder now.
Oh, yeah.
Starting to miss summer.
I bet. Whereabouts in Germany are you? What city?
I'm in a city called Rodgau. It's very close to Frankfurt.
Oh, okay. Frankfurt, I visit quite a lot for meetings in the automotive industry. And I do find it hellishly cold in winter.
So automotive industry, using Linux services or?
Yeah, basically every car nowadays is running Linux. So there's a lot of development with the automotives, and the German companies are very progressive with technology. So it's always fun to visit, as long as it's springtime or summer.
So you must have gone to Munich a lot as well.
Quite a bit, quite a bit. Mm-hmm. And of course, Berlin is a hotbed of innovation with smaller companies. It's an interesting city, Berlin, very eclectic, an unusual global capital.
Oh yeah, definitely, Berlin. I wouldn't live there, but I love visiting.
I feel the same way about Tokyo. So it's nice to visit, but it's a hard pass when living there.
Where you live is south of Tokyo, is it?
Oh, yeah. I'm south of Hiroshima, so I'm on the smallest of the big islands. It's an hour and 10 minutes to get to Tokyo. It's a long way to fly.
One of my brothers live in Japan, actually, in Hamamatsu. I don't know if you know it. I've never been. I've only ever been to Tokyo. Hi, Rick.
Morning. Sorry I'm late.
We were just comparing geographies. And of course, you're in the Lake District, right?
Just underneath.
Just underneath. Beautiful area. Bibi's about to get hit by the German winter. So she's going to suffer. And I'm in the Southwest. I'm just before the subtropics. So it's going to get cold, but in relative terms, I'm basically in Morocco for European standards.
So you might need to put long trousers on a couple of times in the winter period, but you know.
That's exactly it. I went out yesterday and I was like, oh, it's getting chilly. And I noticed the weather was down to 21 degrees.
Yeah, you might need to put sleeves on and perhaps a sweater, maybe.
Exactly.